see me shine from my mind. Finally got back my smile.
Thank you so much for joining us and being here this evening for our second summer series event, Grab a Drink with CEOs Mary Dillon and Constance Jones. It's so great to see so many of you back for this second event. I just want to share a few reminders with all of you this evening before we get started. So as a reminder, all participants' mics will be on mute for the duration of this discussion. So we encourage you to add your positive comments and reactions in the chat box at the bottom of your screen. If you need anything at any time during this event, please go to the chat box and our staff member Morgan will be managing that, and she can help you with any questions that you have. And if you have a specific question for one of our speakers, you can privately message Morgan as well, and she will make sure that your question gets shared during the Q&A portion of the event this evening. So before we officially get started, we have a very important poll question for all of you. We would love to know what beverage you brought with you today for this event. So I'm going to launch the poll, and we'd love to have you take this, and we're excited to share what the results will be. So I'll give it a few seconds as it's going. Wow, let's see what the response is going to be. Just a couple more seconds. And you can also put it in the chat too if you'd like to share what specific drink that you brought with you today. All right, cool. I'm going to share the results. Sparkling water, and water won today with wine as the second high. It's amazing. Thank you so much. Okay, so now I'd love to introduce one of our Step Up alums. She participated in our mentorship programs in Chicago during her high school years. So I'm really excited to bring up now Jasmine Johnson to share a little bit about herself. Jasmine?
Hello, everyone. How you guys doing? I am a proud Step Up alum. I'm currently the co-founder for Joy Creole LLC. Joy Creole is a brand that's been started by me and my fiance, Carly. Joy Creole was founded by me and my fiance, Carly. Recently, I was a general manager at Small Cheval back in Chicago. When COVID happened, the restaurant unfortunately had to close down. When that happened, we packed our bags, we moved to Dallas, and we've been building and working on our brand ever since. So we do like Haitian food mostly, but we've been currently devoting all of our focus and attention into a food truck. I haven't been this passionate or excited about anything since college. And I'm like really looking forward to this and super excited about it. And I know that like I would not be in this position that I'm in today if it had not been for the programs that I was involved in. And Step Up, I had some awesome internship opportunities. Also thanks in part to networking, where I got to work at the Publican, Frontera Kitchens, Big Jones. I, met some wonderful women back in high school, and thanks to them, I was able to, get into college, stay in college, graduate. I was able to find a career, work through my career, and be prepared for the loss of the career, and, have the ability to be able to move forward. Like, and I'm like so grateful to Step Up in the programs that I was involved in, and the people and the connections that I've made. And I can't wait to give back, and do the same thing that someone, that they all did for me. Now that you guys know a little bit about me, I want to switch the attention back to you guys for a second. So how many of you are Step Up members, mentors, or supporters? You can leave a comment in the chat box, or you can wave to identify yourself so everyone can see you. That's fantastic. Thank you all for being here. Okay, and how many of you are here for the very first time? Thank you you all so much for being here. Like, this is great that we're all here. We had this opportunity to unite and, talk about personal development and growth. Chicago people, do you know that tonight would have been the night for the Shine and Dine event? Shine and Dine was one of my favorite events for Step Up, mostly in part to all the food. Everyone would come in their fancy attire. It'd be all of these food vendors around. And I remember thinking, how great it was for those restaurants and chefs to be able to give back to their communities, for a greater cause. And thanks to, Step Up, I also feel empowered to do the same thing one day. Speaking of power, I know you're all here and very excited to hear from two of Chicago's most powerful women. But first, I have the honor to introduce our moderator for today's discussion, Cordelia Tullous. Cordelia Tullous is the Executive Program Director for Step Up Women's Network. She is in her role, she is responsible for identifying and developing local, regional, and national community partnerships that will advance Step Up and equip the girls and connect them to women in their communities. Cordelia is very involved in her local community holding membership in the Links Incorporated Mid-Cities, Texas chapter, the Junior League of Dallas, and the Village Giving Circle. Please welcome our moderator for tonight's discussion, Cordelia Tullous.
Thank you so much, Jasmine. And can we all give a big round of applause to Jasmine? And we're really excited to have her join us. And I personally, that I live in Dallas, am looking forward to trying the food truck once things get rolling. So thank you so much, Jasmine. As Jasmine mentioned, tonight we would normally be actually at the 10th anniversary of Shine and Dine, but we have the next best thing since we can't be together this evening. We're so excited to have long-term Chicago Step Up supporters, both personally and their organizations, join us. So I am so honored to have the privilege of leading this conversation this evening with two incredible CEOs and leaders. So I would like to start by introducing our speakers. First up is Constance Jones. In November 2018, Constance Jones became the Chief Executive Officer of the Noble Network of Charter Schools, Illinois' largest and most successful charter school network. And she is also the first African American and first female to hold that position. Connected through community groups and board positions across Chicago, she quickly became a widely influential and trusted voice within the nation's third largest school district. We are so honored to have Constance with us this evening. Please join me in welcoming Constance Jones. Let's give her a welcome in the chat. Awesome. Next, we have Mary Dillon. The possibilities are beautiful with Mary Dillon as CEO of Ulta Beauty. The Chicago native has 35 years of experience leading consumer-driven brands in a diverse range of industries, with the common thread being her passion for leveraging customer insights and leading through the lens of culture to bring brand engagement and drive results. Since she began leading Ulta Beauty in July 2013, Mary and her team have more than doubled the company's revenues and vaulted Ulta Beauty to the Fortune 500. Please join me in welcoming Mary Dillon. Let's also give her a warm welcome in the chat box. Wonderful. So as I said, I am so excited to get to have this conversation with two amazing leaders who are also long-term friends and supporters of Step Up. But before we start the conversation, we also have a very important question for both of you. And we now need to know what's your beverage of choice that you brought with you today for happy hour. I'll share that a friend of mine shared with me that today is National Prosecco Day. So always wanted to honor marketing campaigns. I'm having Prosecco. So let's start with you, Mary. What drink did you bring with you today? And tell us why you chose that.
Well, first of all, when I saw the percent of people that had water, sparkling water, I was like, okay, wait, I thought this was a cocktail already. Anyway, so what I have, one of my daughters over 21 just made this for me. It's just a very light margarita. It's some kind of new, very bougie margarita mix that's no sugar, a little tequila, pretty damn good. That's what I have.
Awesome. And Constance, what are you drinking and why?
That sounds great, Mary. You're going to have to sing your daughter over here. I'm all about a margarita. So I am drinking Chardonnay tonight, and it's so funny because I am so happy to have my mom on this call with us this evening. So she surprised me by joining. My mom is a minister. She does not drink. So anytime that I am drinking wine or any other beverage around her, like I go back to like when I was 5 years old. So I just wanted to name that. But Mom, I'm drinking Chardonnay.
Awesome. I will now be switching to wine now that I know your mother's on. To water. Thank you so much, Mrs. Jones, for joining us. So we really would just like to jump in. I really want this to be a conversation and, you know, get to learn more about you all, and feel free to ask questions of each other. And then towards the end, we also will engage our audience to give you all an opportunity to ask questions. So let's talk about your current role. What do you love most about it? Constance, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, and so, you know, I was getting all the feels when I was hearing Jasmine talk about her experience in high school and then her experience after high school, because I have the blessing and privilege of working with 12,500 high schoolers in the city of Chicago, from the south and west sides and the north sides of the city. We serve all of Chicago, and we're really proud to serve students from under-resourced communities. And I tell you, I think the thing that fires me up the most about my job and motivates me is just seeing young women, particularly young women of color, succeed and accomplish their wildest dreams. It's why I got into this work. When I hear about our students, you know, tackling some project or concept that they are really struggling with, or, you know, winning in sports, or maybe they didn't win, but they won a lesson in just, you know, working with a team, or going off to college, or pursuing culinary school, or, you know, just being a leader in their family. That just like motivates me to my core. And so that's what I just really love about my job, is just watching young people accomplish their wildest dreams and be successful.
Awesome. And you are a great role model for them as well. Mary, would you like to share with us what you love most about your role?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you guys for inviting me. I really appreciate it. We've been involved with Ulta Beauty with Step Up for some number of years, and Maria Salcedo on my team, who's the Vice President of Merchandising and Strategies on your board, and she loves the organization. I'm really proud of our involvement. And, you know, I don't know, there's a lot to love about my job. There's also there's tough days, right? You can imagine. But we have 45,000 employees, and 92% are women. And one of the things that I really love is unleashing the power of beauty to both let people bring out who they want to be and be as beautiful as they are, you know, however beauty is defined, and also creating career possibilities. And, you know, I mean, I come from a very blue collar family and first generation college graduate. Retail is a place you can actually get a job right out of high school or in high school, and then build a career. And so there's so many stories that have happened at our company with that kind of path, which, you know, we can spend hours talking about, but I'm just really, that is the single thing that I love the most about being the CEO of Ulta Beauty.
Awesome. And we'd love to hear what your workday looks like. I know, you know, no day is necessarily the same, but if you had to kind of think about it as what your day-to-day looks like, let's talk a little bit about what it looked like before our current environment, and then I'll follow up with that. So Mary, would you like to start with that?
Yeah, and it's funny because I'm sure Constance and I have very different days, right? Her key stakeholder, man, I can't imagine being around high schoolers all the time. I've had quite a few of them myself in my own household, so they're wonderful and a lot of work. But you know, I mean, listen, in this COVID world, we know it's all different. So, but you know, the cool thing about my job is that every day is completely different, and it's like and every hour is different. So I really have to kind of allocate my time through the lens of thinking about, you know, how we're going to do better for our guests, you know, associates, my leadership team, you know, always leading strategy and financial discussions. I have to spend a lot of time on Wall Street with Wall Street analysts. And I got to tell you guys, most people on Wall Street are still men, and they don't know anything about beauty. So there's a lot of that with all due respect. And then I also, you know, have a board of directors. You know, sometimes people think you're a CEO and you're the boss. And when I say something about having a meeting with my boss, my kid's like, yeah, I'm like, of course, I've had 11 bosses, right? So, and then also I do a fair amount of my time externally with helping, especially now, retail really come through the pandemic as successfully as we can through the lens of safety, retail CEOs working together. It's been really cool. Government officials, that kind of stuff. I was just on a call. So I was on a call with the Mayor Lightfoot Tuesday morning, frankly, talking with her and other business leaders about what's happening in Chicago. And then, mentoring a young man later in the afternoon who goes to a college that my daughter goes to. So, I mean, it's all over the board.
I love it. What would you say has been the most rewarding part of that, your shift post-quarantine?
Of what? Of post-quarantine?
What's been the most rewarding part of your work now?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would say, really, I chair something called RELA, which is a Retail Industry Leader Association, and every major CEO of every retail company is involved in that. This is sort of in my free time. I agreed to do it before, obviously it was pre-pandemic. It's been very rewarding to be able to see people step up who compete. Think about Best Buy, Target, Lowe's, Home Depot, Ulta Beauty, Lululemon, Levi's, right? Bringing people together virtually, and we meet every week, and people putting their egos aside and their competitiveness aside to say, how in the heck are we going to make sure that we keep people safe and also that we open the economy again? And honestly, that's been pretty cool because I've been able to, part of my leadership style is very much about collaboration and inclusiveness and being able to bring it to that environment at a time that it was required. Because if it wasn't for the pandemic, nobody would be operating that way at that level, I think. So that's been kind of very rewarding.
Awesome. And I know I have enjoyed hearing about that. I think people probably have one view of a CEO of a beauty brand, and what you just shared far, expands beyond the stores you all run and the products. So thank you so much.
Sure.
Constance, what does your day-to-day look like? Now do shift during quarantine.
Yeah, I was reflecting on Mary talking about when you're CEO, sometimes people don't think that you have a boss, and you do have a boss. You have a board, and I have 18 people on my board of directors, and I actually spent 4 hours with them today. And so we had a board retreat, which is an opportunity for us to just step back and reflect on some big challenge or idea and how we're working together to solve it. And so literally we had a 4-hour board retreat on how we can become an anti-racist organization. And in our 20-something years of existence, this is something that we've never done before. And this is something that since I became CEO, we have been working very, very diligently on making sure that we are fulfilling our promises to kids and families and our employees by creating these diverse spaces, equitable experiences and outcomes, and inclusive spaces. And it's important for our boards to be on board with that and to know the language, to understand the why behind it, the historical context. So we spent a lot of time digging into that work today. And it was great. It was awesome. It's also why I have the Chardonnay, because it was a very intense day, right?
Mm-hmm.
But aside from that, thinking back to those beautiful, pre-COVID days, I'm a big believer in being proximate to the people we serve. That helps me become a better leader, understanding the experiences of my primary customer. And that's my students and my families. And I'm not confused about that. I have, 12,500 bosses, and it really means a lot to me to understand, we focus so much on SAT scores and graduation rates in college, and that's all important and good because that opens doors of opportunity for our kids. But how are they actually experiencing, our schools? Are they happy? Like, our kids deserve to be happy. They need to be happy. Do they feel like they are in a welcoming space? So spending a lot of time talking with them. We have now 17,500 alums. And so they are actually our largest stakeholder group. And we learn a lot from engaging with them as well. And so next week, for example, I'm having this alumni town hall where I'm spending 2 hours on a Wednesday night, just getting feedback from our alums, folks who have been with us for several years. And I tell you, listening is a courageous act, but it's my number one goal as CEO is to listen to the people we serve. The last thing I would say is that, and it's one of the things I love about my job, even though it's really hard, is that it is my responsibility to be a strong leader, to be a good leader, to provide clarity to the people who are then going out here and executing. I have 15 chiefs, and I'm really proud to say that we've been on a journey. I was as you mentioned, the first person of color, first woman of color on the Chiefs team. That means all my colleagues were white when I joined Noble, at this point 5 years ago. And since becoming CEO, 53% of our chiefs are people of color, 50% are women. And I'm committed to making sure that we have a diverse space, an inclusive space. I believe that's how we're going to get great results for kids, better results for kids. And it's my job, that in addition to many other things, to make sure we're just leading, and I'm leading this organization well.
Awesome. I really appreciate that both of you have shared the focus on having truly inclusive work environments, obviously very different industries, but so connected. And you as the CEO being there to mentor, which we'll talk about later. Mary, when I heard you say that, I'm like, we're going to talk more about that. I want to hear about mentoring. So let's now talk about your leadership. You all have started to talk about that some already, but what are your core values as a leader? Mary, would you like to start us off with that?
Sure. I would say really kind of, I've been at this for a while. When people are like, she's over 35 years of experience, I do, like I've been at this. And so I've been able to sort of grow and understand and articulate. And I realized that very much the constant theme, a common thread for me throughout my career has been to focus on, and Constance said this well, you got to think about who's your main stakeholder. And for me, it is about our guests, and it's really about our associates in our stores. So that's where, the majority of our employees work, are in our stores. And I grew up kind of supporting myself financially from a very young age. And, I've done every job. I've done, babysitting before I was 16, right? I worked at an Osco drug, I've waitressed, I've cleaned apartments, I've done it all. And so I realized in looking back that one of the things I've been able to carry with me is this trust and respect for the people that are on the front line. It sounds kind of cliche, honestly, but I found that so many people in business sort of have lost touch with that. And so one of the things that's a core value for me is that the people that work for me have to truly, honestly, really listen to people in the front line. And if they're doing it just to be like, it's what I want them to do, that's not good enough. It's like, this is where our best ideas come from, and how we really lead our people is putting our associates at the center of everything we do. So that's kind of, one. And the second one is really because I grew up in an environment of business and consumer packaged goods that was very much like I led cross-functional teams throughout most of my career. So I believe deeply in the power of collaboration. And I honestly think that nobody has all the answers. I don't have all the answers. And so if we can bring people together with really great, deep functional expertise who can think through the lens of, the enterprise and collaborate, we're going to get to better answers. Sounds easy to do. It's very hard to have a team of people that really can live to that. And then I would say, inclusion. And it's been, listen, I've been often, the first woman in many situations, and because I've been at this for a while, and that's not even the half of it, because I'm a white woman and I have different privileges and access, and I get that. But I still have times that I'll be on an airplane, and if I have a blue suit on, somebody asks me where their seat is. Right? Like I'm the flight attendant. That still happens to me sometimes as a CEO of public. It's hysterical, actually. When those things happen, I actually think I'm glad, because you know what? It helps remind me that if I'm experiencing this, what are women of color experiencing? And so to me, this notion of having empathy and driving that through as it relates to how we can have a truly inclusive environment is a core value of mine. So I would just say those three things, right? So respect, collaboration, and inclusion.
I love it. Sounds like someplace I'd want to work. Thanks for sharing that. Constance.
It's interesting, Mary, I have to say, I'm sad that you had that blue suit experience, but it makes me feel a little bit better, because I have certainly been in those situations more times than I can even count, like just shopping in, Target, and someone comes up to me and asks me where, the bleach is. And these are times when I've been, dressed up, or in the midst of this pandemic, if I go and pick up food from a restaurant and I'm dressed casually, someone just assuming that I'm there with caviar or, Uber Eats, to pick up, I get it all the time. Now, I want to be very clear. This is no disrespect to people who do those professions, okay, at all. But it's interesting how no one would ever go up to a white male and say that to them. But for some reason, people often say that to women and women of color. And I know this from very honest conversations with my colleagues of different races and different genders about this topic. So anyhow, sorry, but thank you for making me feel a little bit better. In terms of core values, you know, I come from a proud lineage of tobacco farmers in North Carolina. And, you know, my mom, who I mentioned is on this call, she is in North Carolina. She was the only one of 8 kids to have the opportunity to go to college and graduate from college. And she taught an elementary school for almost 30 years before retiring a couple years ago. I come from a family of incredibly hard workers. I mean, giving, you know, blood, sweat, tears, heart, and soul to whatever it is that they're doing, whatever it is. And I'm really grateful for that core value. I think the thing that frustrates me about that core value is that, you know, hard work doesn't necessarily equal like your success in life. You know, there are lots of people who work hard each and every single day. I think about the custodians in my schools right now who clean to make sure that, like, you know, places are disinfected for students. And we see how important that is for students and staff during this time of COVID. They work so hard, but yet they're still, like, you know, oftentimes struggling with various things. But, you know, I'm really grateful for that core value of hard work that really started within me when I was a child. I'm also very competitive. I am very much motivated by results. And it's funny, I took this Strengths Finder assessment. Some of you might have heard of it some time ago. And there's, like, you know, all these different strengths you can have. And I remember being embarrassed because the number one strength that came up for me, my mom is not surprised by this, is that I'm competitive. That has motivated me personally to be my best. It's motivated me and the organizations and teams that I've led to push everyone to be their best. I remember reading the description of the competitive, you know, assessment. And after, you know, being embarrassed, I remember being proud. It talked about how I want to make sure that other people are, like, living up to their best potential. And I'm really intentional about creating spaces for that to happen. So when I look at every child, every staff member, no matter where they are from, their zip code, what they've been through, I am motivated to do everything I can to help them be their best. So I'm really grateful to work for an organization where results is a core value. We're deeply passionate about making sure that our kids can do whatever it is that they want to do, and they have the supports to do that.
Thank you for that. When both of you are talking.
Hey, Constance, wait, Cordelia, you're gonna hate the fact that now I'm self-moderating, but I just want to jump on something because I like, that's how we are, that's how we roll. But Constance actually touched on something that actually I just want to add, because this notion of being competitive, which I love, it's kind of closely related to the topic of ambition. And these are 2 words, competitive, ambitious, that are, as it relates to women, are used in negative ways. And in my opinion, these are actually some of our best qualities. I think women that are, like, leading, you know, not everybody's ambitious, not everybody's competitive, but honestly, if you are, embrace that. Like, honestly, that is one of those things. And I am, like, trying to banish the notion of ambition being a bad word. I'm trying to banish the notion of guilt being a word that ever comes up when talked about, you know, being a mom with kids and all this stuff. And competitive, I want to put that on the list, because that is a real strength, as your Strengths Finder told you. And it's, you know, and results matter. So anyways, that was great. Thank you for sharing that.
No, I mean, what it means is that every morning when I do my Peloton, I almost kill myself trying to be at the top of the leaderboard. I'm never at the top of the leaderboard, by the way, but I aspire to be there one of these days.
I was going to say, I followed Constance on her Peloton journey. I'm like, you are so inspiring. One day I may join you in that. But I was just going to comment that when you talked about the talent, and, you know, it made me think of a quote that many have probably heard, that talent, there's an abundance of talent, but there is inequity in how the opportunities and access are distributed. And so there's so many talented people that don't have access to all these wonderful opportunities, which is the work that Step Up does. And so I'm really proud to be a part of that and partner with both of you and your organizations. So speaking of that and hearing about what great leaders you all are phenomenal and would be an asset to any organization. So tell me why you choose to lead the organizations you do, and any insight that you'd like to share about kind of what draws you and what keeps you at your organizations. Whoever would like to start.
Constance, why don't you go first?
Hi, Mary. Thank you so much. I have not always worked in education. So I have been in education now for, 11 years. But I started my career in business, and I went to University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. I was a business major there. I'm a big basketball fan, a big Michael Jordan fan, because I grew up in North Carolina and, just grew up in a big basketball family. Like, one of my cousins plays in the WNBA now and is beasting it pretty great. And then I went to Harvard Business School and got my MBA there. So like, I am very much, business trained, and I work for Johnson & Johnson. I work for Hyatt Hotels. But I tell you, there were lots of things I loved about corporate America, but kind of going back to what I enjoy most about being CEO and why I enjoy working for Noble is just the kids. I mean, I don't even know how to describe it. And by the way, I don't have any kids of my own. I have a lot of plants. And some of them are doing well right now. Some of them are struggling. But I have a lot of plants. But I think, again, it's just, for me, it's believing so deeply in people. It is believing that everyone who is born into this world has incredible potential, and just believing that everyone deserves to have the opportunity to do whatever it is they want to do. And, I love seeing people grow. And that's one of the things that I get to do every single day. I mean, I don't know, for some of you, it might have been a while since you've been around a high schooler, but to see like a high schooler when they're in the 9th grade and they can't figure out their lock and they're, kind of stumbling all over the place, and then see them emerge in their senior year as a young adult and believe in themselves, believe that they can like go off into the world and conquer anything. I mean, there's just nothing like that. And so I choose this work in education because of that. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
That's cool. Well, okay, a couple things I got to add. Number one, The Last Dance became major pandemic viewing in my household. So, okay,
Great.
that was awesome. Also, Constance's nail game is on fleek. I'm just going to tell you this right now. We're after hours. I can say this. That is good. That is good. All right. Anyway, so your question about why, why I choose to do this. So, yeah, I just a little tiny bit of background maybe is interesting, but this is why I'm so passionate about trying to help show example, possibilities, and give access. So my parents didn't go to college. Their parents didn't even all go to high school. And when I was born, I lived on the south side of Chicago, West Englewood, actually, in the 1960s, which back in the 1960s was a very blue-collar Irish immigrant neighborhood, which is surprising to people, right? And that, and then we moved out to the western suburbs when I was in like junior high. But I had no role models in business and never knew a CEO, I can tell you that much. And we kind of had to fend a bit for ourselves. I mean, my parents, they wanted us to be successful, but didn't really have the resources or even the knowledge really about like, where should you think, how to think about college. So I went to UIC, which I got a great education, but it was a working person school. I mean, I worked full time and went to school when I was that age. And so I guess to me, so then I started in business. So I got a marketing degree and a minor in Asian studies because I had been an exchange student in Japan in high school. Somehow I got myself, that was the first time I was on a plane when I was 16 and I was flying to Tokyo for this crazy, anyways. But I only knew that I needed to get into some field where I could sort of like, I know it sounds kind of basic, but like support myself. And business sounded interesting, marketing sounded interesting. And I got a very big break on my first job in terms of I got a job at the Quaker Oats Company in 1984. Longer story that I want to get into. But honestly, it was a big, big break. And I was the first person ever hired in this program for undergrads that hadn't gone to an Ivy League undergraduate school. They hired like 30 people a year, 25 were from top business schools, 5 were from, undergrads. And so somebody gave me a shot. And I was, after I was there about 6 weeks, I realized, holy cow, I think they made a mistake. Like, did they know? Like, I'd say UIC, they'd be like, oh, UFC, yeah, of course, you know, whatever. So my whole point is that to be able, so I've only been in business, and I've kind of started from the very beginning level, and then over time saw that I could continue to be successful, and kind of just kept setting my sights higher, because I was like, you know, if I can do this, I'm just going to drive myself, be competitive, drive myself, be ambitious, and see how far I can take it. And now I feel like what's cool is that I've been running Ulta for 7 years now, but my background's like in food and restaurant. I mean, I didn't grow up in the beauty industry, but now back to what I said earlier, I can give opportunities for so many other people. And that's just, I don't know, that's fun. You know, it's like Constance said, when you see people blooming, whether it's in a career or in education, it's awesome. It's a responsibility and it's a privilege.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Well, you all have really made this conversation easy because it's naturally flowing, and something you just talked about, Mary, as you talked about starting out and, you know, thinking back to your first role. We have many people on this call, and they're at different levels in their career. And so a question I'm sure you expect that we would ask is, can you all share words of wisdom for our younger audience members, or maybe people that may be thinking about a career transition, something that you learned or that someone told you?
Mary,
Yeah, I mean, go ahead, Constance.
you go first. I was saying you go first.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you know, this is going to maybe not sound like rocket science, but I honestly think it's really important, which is that even at a very junior level of your career, to show that if you have ambition to like go further, and again, not everybody does, let's assume you do, then I think being able to like show people that you want it, like to be able to say, I can do this job, but I can do more. And you don't want to be out there knocking down people's doors all the time to try to get a promotion, right? Sometimes you do. But if you can take on more, if you can show initiative, if you can ask questions, it's really, I was just talking to my daughters about this last night. Like sometimes you're like, oh, why did I ask that? That was so stupid. But I'm like, you can't let yourself get in that mindset, because when you have a question that nobody else thought of, every once in a while you ask that, you're like the smartest person in the room and the most courageous. So kind of just showing people. And so what I see with people earlier in their career is that if somebody is operating a level where I can imagine them being at the next level or the next level, that gets noticed. And there's a way to do it with humility and not being political, but it's about taking initiative, going a little bit above and beyond, showing curiosity, raising your hand, saying, coach, put me in the game, right?
Awesome. Thank you. Constance?
Literally, I mean, there's so many things you said, Mary, that resonate. And so, admittedly, well, my first for real job was, I was a babysitter when I was 12 years old. As soon as I turned 12, like the following week, I went through this Red Cross, like babies, I don't even know if they have anymore, but I went through this training, like where you had to like learn CPR and all this other stuff and be a certified babysitter, because that was key, like to be certified. I had 7 families that I babysat for. I had my own business from the time I was 12 to 15. And then when I was 15 and like officially, you know, able to work, I got my worker's permit, and I worked at this place called the Java Republic. Now I didn't last long there because they put me in the kitchen, and, you know, they would serve like potato salad with these little sandwiches and stuff. And so one of my core jobs was to peel the potatoes for the potato salad. So I didn't last long, but I, you know, stuck it out. And then when I turned 16, I started working for Lady Foot Locker. So someone in the chat was talking about Jordan shoes and stuff. And I talked about how I worked for, you know, Foot Locker for literally 6 years until they closed down the mall. I loved that job. And I took so much pride in, they had this thing called multiple percentage sales. And so, you know, you got like credit if you sold not just shoes, but shoes and laces. Shoes, and some of y'all might not remember these, but windsuits, like the jacket and the pants. So I say all this to say, like, aside from the Java Republic job, which was a good lesson for me, I learned very early on that whatever you do, just knock it out the park. Like, you're not going to likely land your dream job right away, but when you land the job that, you know, opens the door for you to kind of like, you know, get a foot in the door, and you knock it out the park, even if you're not enjoying it, people notice. And I've been really thankful to be in places where, you know, it's a relationship. So it takes two. It's me doing my part, but then it's other folks, mentors and managers and leaders and others doing theirs to make sure that, you know, I'm receiving opportunities and I'm elevated. Like my first job in education, I was not super thrilled about my job. And I'll tell you why. I was hired to be a project manager for this organization. And I had to do a lot of surveys and a lot of data analysis. Now, if you haven't figured it out by now, I'm much more of a like, you know, like let's talk to the people and like, you know, I didn't really, you know, enjoy being behind a spreadsheet all the time, but that was my job. And I was committed to doing the best job I could. And I was with that organization for 6 years. I was promoted 3 times within that 6 years. I also had a manager who had my back. So I just want to be very clear. Hopefully we'll talk about mentors in a little bit. So I did my part and she did hers. And I'm really grateful for that. So I tell people, whatever it is, and I know it's not going to be fun. It's probably going to be really hard at first. Knock it out the park. People will see. And that can open doors for so many other things.
Awesome. And again, because this conversation flows so well, being a mentor organization, we obviously want to talk about mentorship. And I know it's come up a few times. So would either of you, whoever likes to start, share about someone who's had a tremendous impact on you as a leader? Maybe someone that has been a mentor to you, and how did that person impact your life and how you lead?
Yeah, I'll just say I've had, like many of us, so many. And I, like every situation I'm in, I try to figure out, like, who can I learn from? And I think, you know, just informal is really powerful. Formal mentoring is great too, don't get me wrong. But reaching out, when you ask somebody, hey, I want to learn from you, you'd be surprised. Most of the time people will say yes, right? So I've had so many, but I just want to tell you a story about one, which is sort of cool. This happened very late in my career, which is, so there's a fella in Chicago, and I would venture to guess that nobody on this call probably knows who he is. His name is Andy McKenna Sr., because Andy's in his 80s, okay? And he is one of the sort of he's one of the established like business icons in Chicago. And he was a civic leader, he was a business leader. And Andy, I was at McDonald's for 5 years, the global head of marketing, and Andy was on the board, he was the chairman of the board. And when I became CEO, the first CEO job I had was running US Cellular in Chicago. And the minute I became CEO, Andy took me aside and he said, okay, here's what you need to do. And he kind of showed me the ropes about, not so much about being a CEO, but here's where you need to get involved in the city. You need to join the Chicago Club. Why? Because they don't have enough women and people of color. You need to marry, first thing he said to me at Ulta Beauty, you need a black director too on your board. You have none. This is an 85-year-old white dude. Okay, this is what I say to him all the time. I'm like, Andy, I don't know how you were so involved and he's like this kind of behind the scenes bumper. He's done more for people, women of color and people of color in Chicago in boardrooms than anybody I know. And that to me, and he taught me like where I need to get involved, where I need to wield influence, how to wield influence at a pretty late stage in my career. And I didn't even see it coming. And I think that's like super cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's wild.
Yes. Constance.
I mean, that's a great story. And it makes me think about how, that's one of the reasons why I love people. They can surprise you in hopefully, ideally, the best ways, right?
Yes.
You know, and teach you things that just inform your thinking and how you want to show up and lead. So I think about the woman who gave me my first job in education. So I was working in the spa industry for Hyatt hotels. So I was literally serving a luxury consumer and doing that work, and then trying to make a case to this woman, Kelly, to hire me to come on board and serve under-resourced students from under-resourced communities. So like when you look at my resume, you're like, this doesn't make sense, right? But she believed in me. She gave me a chance. And, you know, this was a white woman, completely polar opposites, very deeply introverted. I'm very extroverted. Like, you know, as Mary said, I got my rainbow nails. You know, she was just very conservative in her dress and, you know, very long, just long, straight hair. And we made a dynamic team. And I was a lot back then. I'm a lot now, and I'm not apologetic about it. And she created the space for me to be who I am and to be successful in that environment. So she really worked hard to create, and I was the only, at the time I was on this team with all like current educators, people who had, taught, led schools, open schools. And I was, coming with my business background, and she just made me feel welcomed and loved and appreciated. And I was dealing with a lot of insecurities at that time. So, fast forward to, where I am today. That is absolutely a core value that I live with. I mean, even going back to these nails, we couldn't have these nails at Noble a few years ago. We had all kinds of policies that restricted things like nail color. And, I realized, like, what are we doing? This actually has no impact on a student's ability to be able to come and learn, or teachers' ability to come and teach. And so we got rid of all that. Hair color, all these other crazy things. It was very important to me, because someone modeled that for me, to create an inclusive space where I could really learn and grow and thrive. So really grateful for mentors. I would not be here today without the power of mentorship. And I've had a lot of mentors who look like me, and I have a lot that don't look like me, who are completely polar opposite.
Awesome.
That is so cool. I'm really glad you blew that up there. That's awesome about the policies and whatever. But and I would just add, like, maybe a takeaway for the audience is, like, the power that you have to create an environment like Constance just described. You could be in an environment where people want to make you successful, or people want to make you fail. And so whether you have the power to make people successful or fail, or if you're in an environment where it's toxic and people want to, not let you be successful, then that's not a good environment to be in. I've been in them all, and I've been in ones where people want to help me be successful and people did not. So.
I was just gonna say, Constance, I think I remember you dyeing your hair right when you became CEO, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Part of that change in policy. Well,
yeah, we had a policy. Well-intentioned does not mean good. And we're seeing a lot of that happening across our country. We got these people who are so well-intentioned, but they've done harm. And so we had policies, just for context for people, that said, you have to have natural hair color. And so when I became CEO, I got rid of that, and I wanted to show up and, people to really know that if I'm saying this from the top, if I'm living this from the top, please, embrace this. I want you to feel comfortable. So I dyed my hair purple. Now, my mom would tell you, I've done all kinds of crazy colors. I've done Beyonce blonde, and I actually paid for that. I over bleached my hair and all my hair fell out, but that's okay. It grew back. But I've never done purple or any type of rainbow color, but I thought it was important to model to our kids and to our staff that, it's okay.
Awesome. Well, I do have a couple of fun questions that I want to ask really quickly before we go to questions to the audience. So first quick question is, what's your favorite? I know this is a big rivalry in Chicago. What's the best deep dish Chicago pizza?
Lose.
Uh-oh. Mary, who you got?
I would go super old school, which is Uno's.
Oh.
People might not even know about that one.
Any Chicagoans on here that want to weigh in on that?
Uno's.
All right.
Let's go in the Wayback Machine.
Well, we do have a couple questions from the audience that we want to take. We won't be able to get to all of them, but definitely appreciate you all sharing. This one I'll start with is for Mary. At my company, we're trying to match up talented Black artists with mass brands to help support them and bring wider and more positive representation, whether it's on packaging, designs, etc. Do you think mass brands are ready to show that support at a public scale? And would you recommend we connect with more boutique brands?
Not mass price point, but like massively available. This is a deep topic that I could go on for hours on, and I'd love to engage if you guys want to, share some ideas with me. But, Black owned brands, actually, I could go on for hours. The notion of women of color have been underserved by the beauty industry, whether it's hair, whether it's foundation, you guys know this. And this is a passion for me at Ulta Beauty that we want to lead here. And we've been on a journey, and I think we're only just starting to get somewhat near close. We're not even close. We want to have a texture expert in every single Ulta Beauty store. We do hair, full service hair salon, Constance, all right, hair, makeup. But
Oh.
so, and Black owned brands or Black targeted brands as well is a huge area of focus for us. So I think that the time, if somebody has interest and capability in that area, this is the time. I mean, this is the time. There's a huge opportunity there. It's still under a very underserved market.
Awesome.
So yes.
We'll follow up with who asked that question. So, and we know
I mean, one of the most
Maureen-
successful launches we just had was Tracy Ellis's Ross's pattern line of products. And, you know, she built that business from scratch herself after over many years, and it's really taking off. So I could go on for hours. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you. This is really for both of you, but I'll start with Constance. So both of you are very energetic and go-getting. How do you keep your motivation going? Do you ever feel that you need to sit back sometimes and take a break? If so, what's your advice to keep pushing and pulling yourself back up?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's a great question. I'll be honest with you, before this pandemic hit and we were all kind of forced to get somewhere and sit down, for those who had the privilege of doing that, recognizing there have been many people who've been, you know, going out here and keeping our city running and, you know, essential workers. But I had the privilege of being able to do a lot of my work from my home. And that was good for me, because it's when I got somewhere and I actually had to be still that I realized like how tired I was. And so I have really been trying to prioritize like, you know, rest and, you know, relaxation. And you know what, this has been really hard for me and it will probably continue to be hard for me, but just like learning how to say no, you know? You know, if I have to be honest with you, I have had this like fear of missing out syndrome where like, I just want to know what's going on. If I'm invited to some event or thing, like I feel like I have to go because I just want to, you know, just look and observe. And I mean, good grief, if someone were to come to me the next day and be like, oh, this event was fabulous. I mean, oh my God, you know? And I just realized that I wasn't taking care of myself the way I needed to. And so it's been really good for me to be intentional about just getting somewhere and sitting down, resting, you know, reflecting, prayer, meditation, yoga, but doing a lot of like, you know, online virtual yoga. That's been good for me, but that's just how I've been able to, you know, restore and rejuvenate, because the days are long and they're really hard and really stressful. I can't even, I mean, literally yesterday, you know, you asked me earlier about kind of like an average day. I had a meeting with my leadership team, 2 hours, and we literally went through like this like 4-page document of like all these questions around reopening and and all those decisions, the final decision, like, you know, rests with me, and they're high stakes. So you got to make time, if anything, for rest so that you can think clearly and get up and do it all over again.
Awesome. Well, it has been absolutely wonderful to talk to both of you. I do have one last question that I always think about as part of my career journey, and I'd really love to hear from both of you inspiring leaders. And that is, what is the legacy that you'd like to leave for other women and girls? So what would you like to outlive yourself? Mary, we can start with you.
I mean, that one's easy for me. It's such a great question, but anything is possible. And I feel like if a girl from, you know, the South Side of Chicago with absolutely no advantage, no network, no money, no access, could get to where I am, honestly, I just think I'm really trying to make sure that I help build opportunities for others and just kind of continue to show that anything is possible.
You truly have. Thank you so much. Constance?
You know, ultimately, as I think about this, I just want to be known as a good person. You know, I lost my father, who was like one of my best friends, to cancer 4 years ago. And like, as I reflect on his obituary and I had the opportunity to talk with some of his coworkers, you know, like my mom, they grew up on a farm, you know, 10 minutes away from one another. And he was a math whiz. So I got my name, you know, Constance, which means the constant, from my dad, because he loved numbers so much. So I was named after math. And I remember talking to some of his coworkers after he passed, and he was just mostly known, despite his, you know, accomplishments in the field of statistics, where very few Black people, Black men in particular, worked. They talked about how loving he was, how empathetic he was, you know, they talked about how nurturing he was, how he was always advocating for them, like just that he was a good human being. So I just want to be known as a good human being who, you know, hopefully create a space and environment to cultivate other good human beings and do some good in the world. So that's my hope.
Well, you are both well on your way. You're both wonderful human beings and setting a wonderful role model for our next generation as well as your peers. So will everyone please join me in thanking our amazing speakers, Mary and Constance. The hour went by really fast. Thank you so much for your inspiring words, your authenticity, and taking the time to spend happy hour with us. Enjoy some wine and water, Mrs. Jones. Before we move into our networking reception, I'd like to take a moment to first thank all of you for being here today again and share how you can continue to stay engaged with Step Up and support Step Up. We have a unique opportunity in this moment to support girls of color and under-resourced community in developing their skills, relationships, and access needed to graduate high school competent, college-bound, career-focused, and ready to join the next generation of leaders. You may have heard that before, it's our mission. Today, we invited all of you to bring your own beverage with you. So while you didn't go out and buy a drink at your favorite restaurant or bar, we would be grateful if you consider donating the cost of one to Step Up. $15, for a drink is about the average going cost, but with making that investment in Step Up can make a huge difference. So giving is easy, as you can see on the screen now. You can grab your phone and scan the QR code. It will take you to Step Up's donate page. And for those of you that signed up as guests, you can donate $65 and become an official member of Step Up. Your investment truly is transformative and makes our impact possible. So I'm gonna thank all of you in advance for your support and again, for showing up today. And then you hopefully have seen as well that we would love to invite you to our first ever digital summit, Step Up Together, on September 10th, 2020. Ulta Beauty is one of our sponsors yet again. If you haven't signed up yet, you can today. It's an event you don't want to miss. You can register for the event as you see on the website at suwn.org/stepuptogether. We certainly hope to see you there as well. So again, thank you so much for being here. Before we move into the networking receptions, we do have one more poll. Since this is our second in our series, we just want to continue to bring you great events. So we'd love to get some insight from you. So if you'll take a minute and submit your answers. While you're doing that, again, thank you so much for your participation. Thank you again, Mary and Constance. It's been wonderful to have this conversation with you this evening. And now I'm going to pass it over to Amanda, who's going to give us more information about the networking receptions. I hope to see you all in
Thanks, guys. Take care. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you so much for being
Thank
here.
you. Nice to meet you,
so
Constance.
much.
Nice to meet you too.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Cordelia, for your leadership today and your support. It's been such a great conversation. And so now we will move into the networking reception for the next 25 minutes. And so we really hope to have all of you join us and stay even for as long as you can. If you can't stay for the entire time, you can choose to go into the networking breakout group and then leave from that group. So what will happen is in just a moment, you'll get a pop-up that will tell you where you're going to your breakout room, which will be led by a Step Up staff member, and they will help facilitate the conversation and allow you to make some deeper connections and chat about some takeaways from today's conversation. So I'm gonna go ahead and open up the rooms. If you need anything or have any questions, as a reminder, you can use the chat box or ask your breakout leader. Thank you so much for taking the time to connect with us in our networking reception. And thank you for joining us today. Your engagement in Step Up is so transformative and makes our impact possible for both our amazing girls and women. And so we just want to invite you to check our calendar for our next summer series event that we just announced, August 26th, a fireside chat with Christy Hawbegger of Warner Media. So we invite you to join us then. Thank you so much and see you next time.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks. Have a great evening, everyone.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you. Bye.